It's been 6 long years. But finally, DW have come back to Caster Coup. And random rock impersonations aside, they have given him a much needed animation update, which looks absolutely great. But with this animation update, Caster Coup did not receive any sort of buff. And yet, he remains widely regarded as one of the weaker AoE caster options. And that's one hell of a weak field. So what can we do to change that? Welcome to How to Solve a Problem Like Caster Chulainn. Yes, Caster Coup, you may have indeed saved us in Fuyuki, and for that you can be very proud. But there's a long list of charges against you. Let's begin with the first, namely that he's a low rarity caster with an area of effect Noble Phantasm. As any longtime players know, this is a niche with a notorious reputation. Imperiled by the twin evils of low base attack and the caster class multiplier, these AoE NPs tend to hit as powerfully as the default caster attack looks. That is to say, Caster Coup is joined in this niche by the likes of Mephistopheles and Caster Gilles. And my, what company that is to keep. So beyond being in a fairly notorious niche, he also suffers from mismatched skills. 2 of his skills are survival skills, protection from arrows and disengage. While on another servant this might be nice, what the hell are they doing on a low rarity farming caster? This is the one who did not need those skills. Neither of them help him with his niche at all. That said, his other skill, Primordial Rune, is at least helpful. What about the third criticism? That he has a Buster Noble Phantasm with a triple arts deck, especially a Buster Noble Phantasm that doesn't do too much damage. Again, much like his brethren. This simultaneously hurts his damage output as he can't do Buster Brave Chains, and hinders his NP gain potential by preventing NP-led arts chains, impacting his access to his Noble Phantasm, which again is the center of his kit, especially pre his rank up quest. Number 4, he has a wasted critical damage buff. Caster Cou's first skill, Primordial Rune, is undoubtedly his best post rank up, giving him a 50% critical damage buff in addition to a 30% NP battery. But this critical damage buff is probably not going to be that useful. He not only suffers from low base attack, being a low rarity caster, he doesn't have any form of star gather rate. Number 5, he is awful prior to his rank up quest. Without the 30% NP battery, he doesn't have easy access to his Noble Phantasm, thus making him a poor excuse for a farmer. And finally, he is very difficult to summon. Unlike most low rarity casters, Caster Coup is story locked! That means he isn't available to be summoned outside of special banners and the story banner, making it far more difficult to summon him than any of his potential rivals. So the overall verdict is Caster Coup needs improvement, and badly. The question is, how do we do this? How do you solve a problem like Caster Chulainn? So here are 2 potential ways to improve Caster Chulainn. In the comments say which one you prefer, or if you have an alternative improvement, feel free to leave that as well. Let's begin with option 1. The first of the 2 options is to upgrade his Disengage skill to Skathart's Teaching rank A+. Now this keeps the removal of all debuffs, which is what the skill currently does, but also adds some new buffs. The first is to increase Caster Cou's NP gain for 3 turns by up to 30%. Furthermore, it also increases his attack by up to 20% for that same period. Finally, it comes with infinite increased burn damage to all enemies for 5 turns. The primary purpose of this buff is to make him a much better farming servant, which is currently his primary niche, and it does so through multiple ways. The first is to give him greater access to his Noble Phantasm by improving his NP gain for 3 turns. At the moment, he does suffer from a problem in that he has a Buster Noble Phantasm, which prevents him from using that for Arts Chains. On the other hand, he does have a triple Arts deck, and so despite his middling base NP gain, he does have decent potential provided he has an NP gain buff. And this answers that call, enough to make him a solid option, preferable to many of his rivals such as Babbage or Mephistopheles. In the right lineups, there is the chance that he can use his Noble Phantasm twice in at least 3 turns, thus being able to stack the Buster buff that comes prior to him doing damage. This gives him a much better claim to being a farmer, thus overcoming his greatest rival Charles Babbage, matching his NP gain buff while at the same time having the advantage of an excellent 30% battery on a 5-turn cooldown. Furthermore, the additional attack buff combines well with his NP's inbuilt Buster buff, ensuring he can do a good amount of area of effect NP damage. As for the increased burn damage, it's a nice little gimmick and makes better use of his fire runes. So overall, I think this is an effective farming buff for Caster Ku that really makes him the standout 3-star AoE farming caster. But what if we instead want to exploit his other potential niche? That unrealized critical damage buff. The second proposed upgrade is perhaps a little bit more niche and more unique among 3-star casters. This is to upgrade his Primordial Rune skill yet again, and make it a more effective critical damage skill, sort of similar to how Babbage currently is on the JP server. What I propose is keeping his critical strength buff at 50%, but also including a critical star gather rate buff for 3 turns. In addition, Caster Ku would drop up to 10 stars every turn for that period. This allows him to make use of his potential critical damage niche, while also helping to supply a small number of stars to feed it with the necessary star gather rate to make sure Caster Ku himself gets those stars. Mixed with his NP battery that would remain on the skill, this would allow Caster Ku improved NP gain and to take full advantage of that 50% critical damage buff, which is highly impressive given his low rarity. On the other hand, his fairly low base attack and the caster class modifier means that low rarity casters don't tend to make the best critical damage dealers. That said, if you consider the fact this is not only for damage, but also improved NP gain, it could be a way to not only make him a decent critical damage dealer, but also to help him in his farming niche. So there are the 2 options: you either have the NP farming Caster Ku, or the all-new critical damage Caster Ku. Vote in the comments which you think is best, or present an alternative. I've been Soonjunes, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. Once again, thank you for watching. See you soon.